It seems no matter how minor the character is, or how far in the background the character was, they got an action figure made of it. That's except for 2 action figures from Star Wars that's never been made. Not from Hasbro, not from Kenner, not from Hot Toys, not from any other toy company. So let's look at why there was no Tanika sisters. This is how I'm going to try to say it right here. I'm sure I'm going to say it wrong, and you're going to let me know in the comments. Tanika sisters. Oh, anyway, these are 2 female twins, although they're not identical twins, but very close to it. They are seen in the cantina in Star Wars A New Hope. You've probably seen them right here.
They'll have to wait outside. We don't want them here.
And out of all the toys that Kenner and Hasbro has made, we've never got action figures of these 2 females. And there's been a lot of rumors throughout the years, from contracts with likeness rights issue to even Lucas hating the characters because they were seen as prostitutes. But what's the real reason we never got these figures? Even today, if Hasbro is asked if they're going to make these sisters, they always say they're not going to do it due to legal issues. Whenever Hasbro does a fan poll, these sisters are always top of the list. But Hasbro won't count them. And it seems like the reason we won't get these 2 sisters all started with a letter. But before we get into that, like I said, there's been rumors all out there. First, let's talk the likeness rights issue. Back in 1977, it was very common to sign away likeness rights without getting royalties. Even Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher have talked about how they didn't get any extra money for the merchandising.
Mark, there's a report that there will be $250 million worth of toys and games and T-shirts and that kind of paraphernalia. Now, will you get any share of those profits?
No.
Nothing?
No.
Not 1 cent?
No. No.
Does that upset you?
Wait a minute, let me think. No, actually, I tried to negotiate before I signed the contract. See, I'm no dummy. I mean, everyone says, "Do you think it was going to be a hit?" I thought it was going to be a big hit. I didn't think it would be cinema history, but I thought it would be a big hit. So I looked and I thought, okay, he's signing me for 3. It's like a whole James Bond gig. If they want to put my face on a lunchbox, I'd call my agent. I said, this before I signed for it. Try to negotiate 1/10 of 1%. That I thought was fair. 1/10 of, and remember, there's 100 points. 1/10 of one of those, which I had talked to certain people and they thought it was fair. Well, of course, I was unknown. That's a big laugh. Forget it. But on the other hand, George did give us 1/4 of a point of the film's, I don't know whether it's gross or profit. It mixes me up, but I've gotten checks.
Merchandising, which is seen as part of the promotion. Toys, stuff like that went around with promotions. You signed off your likeness rights. You didn't get any royalties. You didn't get any kickbacks. And it seems most likely every character out there, or every actor in the film, just signed a standard contract and signed away their likeness right without any extra money going to the actors with sales of their figures. Yesterday I talked on the Boshek action figure that the family didn't even know was being made. Again, part of the reason. Just an actor doing his daily part, signed a normal contract, and gave away his likeness to Lucasfilm. But what about these sisters? Did they not sign away their likeness rights like everybody else? I mean, you would think if the actor that played Boshek and every other background character in Star Wars or even main character signed away their likeness rights, how did these 2 sisters escape when even someone like Harrison Ford didn't get out of giving away his likeness rights for Han Solo? One thing unique about these 2 is that they were models and they had a model contract. Now, being a model, you don't just give away your likeness rights to anyone. So they did have a little unique different contract. Now, when Kenner was making the Star Wars toys, there was really no real need for these figures. But when Hasbro got into the act in the 90s and on to the 2000s, they were making everything. They even made the Wolfman figure. So why did they get around to this figure? Again, it always came back to likeness rights. But if you remember the early 90s, they did release Micro Machine figures based on the 2 characters. Although that wasn't very much detailed. But also around the 90s, the Star Wars card game came out, and there was the sisters on a card. Their faces, their likeness, looked more like them than an action figure would. So it made people wonder, was it really likeness right reasons for this? Well, it seems it all comes down to one of the 2 actresses, Angela Staines. It seems that she was out with her son shopping in a store, and her son found the card with the sisters on it, bought it, and showed it to his mom. Look, you're on the Star Wars card.
Yeah, there was a card with me with with a picture of Shada Kai, and I found that card because my son went into one of those shops where you buy Star Wars things, cards and things, and he came out with my card on it. I said, "That's me." This is many years later.
Angela didn't really think much about it, headed home. That's when her husband saw it and started to think, this isn't right. You should be getting paid for this. They're using your likeness. Angela really just blew it off and didn't care, but it seems her husband called a lawyer who sent a letter over to Lucasfilm. Now, what was detailed in that letter, we really don't know. Angela herself even said in an interview that she really didn't remember what was in it. She didn't think it was that harsh, but this seemed to boycott the action figures being made.
Because I did write a letter to Lucasfilm. I think it was my husband said, "Oh, they shouldn't be selling your cards with your picture on it and figures and stuff like that and making money from it. You should get some royalties." And I said, "Well, I don't know." So he had a lawyer at the time for his company, and the lawyer wrote a letter, but I don't think it was that threatening or anything. It was just, "This isn't fair. We think that you should pay something towards for these things, never got a reply, never heard anything. They never wrote back, never, did anything more. But Christine said that she'd been hanging around with the Lucasfilm group, and they all knew about this. They all knew about this letter that had been sent, and that was one of the reasons that they weren't making the action figures.
There's one thing you can say about George Lucas. You rub him wrong, or you give him any of the slightest hint that you might give him a headache, he's going to ban you for life. I mean, look at all the problems with David Prowse. And there's others throughout history. Although we don't know how harsh the language was in this letter, it was sent from a lawyer letting Lucasfilm know, if you're going to use the likeness rights of Angela, we want some kickback. And this seems to be where it all started. This letter came after the mini micro figure and the trading card. The actress did get in touch with Lucasfilm a few years later, as she was hoping to do some convention work, signing autographs and meeting fans. Lucasfilm sent over a contract where they wanted her to sign away her likeness rights and not get any kickback at all. No money, no dollars, no percentage of the sales, nothing at all, but a standard contract that everyone else seems to have signed. But she didn't like that she wouldn't get anything out of this. She was even told by Lucasfilm, "You can sign your action figure if we make it, but you'll have to buy it like anyone else. But then you can sign it and charge what you want to for it."
Lucasfilm did send me a contract eventually, but it was literally this. It literally said, "Sign on the dotted line, and you belong to us. We don't pay you anything. We don't guarantee you any work. We can make your figures, we can make your cards, and we can sell them. But you don't get anything." And so I never signed it. So I think that might be something to do with why they haven't made the action. But that's what Christine told me, was what they were saying, that they wouldn't make our action figures because of that letter.
Interesting.
So I don't know if you can join the dots here, because I can't quite join all the dots. I was never approached. I was never asked. And all I was told by the Lucasfilm people was that if they made an action figure after I signed the contract, I would have to buy it from them. I would have to buy the action figures to be able to get them signed. And I guess if you can get to the conventions and get them signed, then yes, you could make some money out of that, I suppose.
Like I said, we've heard rumors throughout the years that Lucas just didn't like the characters, that the likeness rights issue, but it seems it was mostly due to this letter being sent to Lucasfilm. It rubbed Lucas the wrong way. And now with Disney owning Lucasfilm, they wanted to cross some T's and dot some I's in newer contracts, and Angela's refused to sign. Now, the other sister sadly passed away a few years ago, but apparently she did sign away her likeness rights for the action figure or whatever else they wanted to use it for. But the lesson learned here, you don't upset George Lucas. Whenever anyone goes against anything George Lucas wants to do, you're going to pay the price of it. In fact, Even their small scenes are kind of even cut down for the special editions. I'm surprised Lucas just didn't airbrush them out of the whole scene. Angela even tells a story a few years after sending the letter that her husband ran into George Lucas at a restaurant. Her husband went over there and asked if he even remembered his wife, and Lucas said he did. And she got a feeling that Lucas remembered the letter more than he actually remembered her.
And he said to George Lucas, "Do you remember my wife?" And he looked up and he looked at me and he said, "Yes, I do." And I couldn't quite, I didn't know whether he was saying that just to be polite, but I got the feeling he was saying that because of the letter, because he remembered the letter. I don't know. But it just sort of looked at me like he knew, "Oh, yes, I know who you are." As if I would ever go through to sue Lucasfilm. I mean, they're huge.
I would love to see what was actually written in this letter. They must have used some strong, legal, hard language to upset Lucas. That put a ban on these two figures. And now with Disney owning the rights to Lucasfilms and Star Wars and the characters, and the remaining actress not wanting to sign away her likeness without getting some kind of payback or kickback for it, don't look for these figures anytime soon. Now, I don't see why Hasbro or someone wouldn't just make the figures. They could use the likeness of the one sister that signed off on her likeness, and the other one just change the face a little bit. I mean, it's not like we really know these characters from the film. They could change them slightly and still get them released. We've seen other toy lines do this in the past. Maybe Hasbro just don't think they'll be that big of a deal or big of a seller, so they don't worry about it, although they're always brought up in the fan polls where fans are demanding figures of these two sisters. So Hasbro has to kind of know that at least the fan collectors base would like them. I guess at the end of the day, the ones that really lose out are the fans who really like these two characters. I thought I would share this video because over the years, I've said it before, I've seen a lot of different rumors. Till Lucas didn't like that the EU made them prostitutes. They just didn't like the characters altogether. I even heard a rumor once that the name sounds too much like Tonka, and they was worried the Tonka company would get upset. And then I heard a likeness rights issue that just didn't sit right, being that the trading card came out, or game card I guess, and the micro figures. But it seems to all have gone back to that letter her husband talked to a lawyer about and then sent to Lucasfilm.
Hey, Jumpman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.